What is up, YouTube? It's your boy Alex here from Team Generations, and today I'm joined by my buddy Mustafa, actually, who is somebody who's actually visited us at our locals before, seen the channel before, and we kind of connected. So very happy to have him on the channel. I saw a picture of his Victor deck profile the other day, or Victor deck rather, and I was like, oh wow, like I think this is actually a really decent like rogue pick at the moment, and I've been kind of retooling mine, so I wanted to see what he had in his. So overall, I'm going to pass it over to Mustafa if you want to run us through, you know, just any shoutouts, intro, just general thoughts that you have on the deck to start us off.
Hey, thanks for the introduction, Alex. Yeah, my name's Mustafa. I've been playing Vanguard pretty much since it started back in 2011. From Reno, Nevada, so the other side of the country from where you guys are at.
Yeah.
Big fan of the channel, loved your profiles, your Vanquisher deck was pretty good. And yeah, I've been playing Nova since middle of G format, about 2016-ish. One of my favorite clans, and the new stride seemed kind of fun. I wanted to make it work. Most people are playing it with Ashura Kaiser, which was fantastic, but my boy Victor, as you can see with the playmat's my guy, so I want to make it work with this guy.
Awesome. Yeah, no, appreciate that. Thank you. Cool. So any shoutouts before we begin?
Just the Reno, Nevada Vanguard community. If anyone plays and is in the area, come on down.
Cool. And what's the card shop you play at?
Called Nerdvana Games.
Nerdvana, that's funny. Okay, cool, awesome. So let's start off with the deck profile. So I see you have it in descending order over here, starting off with the grade 3s.
Yeah, so for the grade 3s, we play not a lot actually. We only play 4 V-Victor and 1 Zubat Battler Victor.
Okay.
You don't ride into any of the others, and honestly, if you don't have them in hand, you can do GSSC them. That's how important it is to V-Victor. So that's really it for the grade 3s we played. The only other grade 3 is the Heal Guardians, but I'll get to that. Triggers.
Okay.
So that's it for the grade 3s. The grade 2s and the grade 1s really this deck. I assume most people know what V-Victor does. His skill is fairly simple. We really only use it for the Excel. But the main grade 2 in this deck is Brutal Jack. So Brutal Jack's skill is he's 19k on your turn for existing. He just gets 10k power circle for cost. He can't stand during the stand phase, but you can rest 2 rear guards to stand him. The only other grade 2s really play are Sazanda, who is a recent combo. He's not too expensive to come by now, so he's fairly easy to pick up. He makes this guy even bigger. The combo with Brutal Jack is Bare Knuckle Arnest. Arnest's important skill is GB1 on place, Soul Blast 1, rest him, rest another unit, draw a card, and then you can retire Arnest to stand Brutal Jack. Actually, I think the Soul Blast rest draw is not GB1. The retire himself stand is GB1. But anyway, you're not going to play GB. And the last grade 2 is 4 of Cool Hank. He's really just there as a generic restander. You can play any restander you want. The reason I play Hank is because he's good on ride, also Soul Blast on his draw.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with that.
You can play Ninja, you can play Dual Shot, any restander you want.
Cool.
So that's for the grade 2s. The grade 1s, again, starting off with the most important grade 1 in the deck, which is 4 Extreme Battler Malyaki. Malyaki's skill is GB1. He requires a Victor Vanguard, so it does not work if you're not Victor, either Stride or the Heart. When the unit in front of it stands, which will hopefully be Brutal Jack, the unit in front of it gets the skill. On attack, pick 2 units, they get 4k power till the end of the turn. And that skill stacks. So if Brutal Jack stands in front of him the first time he attacks, he'll give 2 units plus 4k. If he stands again, you get to pick 2 units, give them 4k, and repeat that skill again. So basically, the first time he stands, he gives an 8k buff. The second time he stands, he gives a 16k buff. And the numbers get out of control really quickly, which is why damage triggers don't really matter.
Oh, wow, yeah. That's actually pretty big, because right now I feel like, you know, what's big? Steam Maidens, the other 4 stacks, there's Highlander, there's also like Rising Nova in Premium, and, you know, I feel like a big bane of this deck originally kind of was like, hit a defensive trigger and kind of shut off my turn offensively, so I think this is a great way to kind of get around that, and I see you're pulling out the Sazanda as well.
Yeah, well, the next grade 1 in this is actually, I'm playing 4 of the old Extreme Battle of Earthship.
Oh, wow.
The old Stride Fodder from G format. The reason I play him is also because he's a searcher, and his search skill is really why we play him. His search skill is reveal a grade 3 in hand when he's placed on rearguard circle, search your deck for Victor grade 3, and discard a card from your hand. So if you have the Victor you don't want, which is Zubat, Or if you even have a Heal Guardian in hand, you can
Yeah.
reveal that for the card you do want, so you don't miss it. And the last grade 1 playing is for Extreme Battler Gun. He's just another generic restander like Cool Hank. So just a bunch of cards in this deck that do the same job. Make it a little bit more consistent. We'll go on to the triggers from here. Starting off the triggers, OT, Rant OT, best in the game. Gotta run it.
Yeah, there's no argument there.
4 Heal Guardian, specifically because it's a grade 3, so it works with the Victor Searcher. 4 Draw Perfect Guards. I'm not running Element 3 on this deck because I do need the draw in this deck. It's a combo deck to get this off. Single Magnet Analysis, the Generation Break 1 into Soul gives 10k cheer attacks. Really run him for the Soul Charge, nothing else really.
Okay.
2 Red Lightning. His skill is he goes to Soul and countercharges 1, so it gives you Soul Charge and countercharge phases, like half a Zeke from Chaos Breaker.
Gotcha.
4 of the Stride Crit, and 1 of the generic V-Star. You can run any V-Star.
Okay.
Just tap the Hyper. He's cool.
Yeah.
So that's the whole main deck. Then we'll get into the G-Zone, which is really only 1 card that you need to worry about. The rest of the G-Zone is kind of just for show. Fighting Emperor Dragon, Merciless Dragon, his skill, and the whole skill this deck is built around, when he sees a unit stand, he stands himself and attacks, even if it's during the main phase, and every time he attack, or you have to discard 2, and then at the end of his battle, he loses 1 drive. And that skill is not once per turn.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, you can keep this going as long as you have Counterblast. And with Maliaki, his power goes to ridiculous extents of like 80, 90,000.
Wow.
That's really the whole thing this G-Zone is built around, is this 1 card. The rest of it, we can go through it real quick. 1 Bustard. Demolzorus, he's the only other card in the G-Zone I go into.
What does he do? I'm actually not familiar.
Yeah, he's an old rare from back in the day. His skill is, let's see, actually. Choose 2 of your rear guards, rest them, draw a card, Soul Charge 1. Until end of turn, he gets a skill, on attack, Counterblast 1, stand a rear guard, and it gets 3k.
Okay.
You use it because he gives you a Soul Charge, and he gives you an extra draw as well.
Gotcha.
So basically, if you're not ready to go into Merciless, you go into Demolzorus or Ozdabulk here. Ozdabulk attack, Counterblast 1, flip a card into G-Zone, stand your whole front row except for himself, and then he gets 5k for every rear guard that stood. So just some generic power, some pressure before we go into the big guy. The rest of the G-Zone is 2 Meteor Kaiser Victor. Don't really go into any slip fodder. My favorite card in the game, got the SGR from back in the day, the favorite champ. Don't really go into him. The winning champ Victor, again, he's just here because I need to fill up spots in the G-Zone. The Progenitor, for if you have the second Victor in hand and you need free strides later, nice to have. A Stark, we don't really go into that much either. And a GB8 for if you want to do Bustard shenanigans, but again, this is the main card. So that's about it for the strides. We don't really use, like I said, anything apart from Merciless, but they're there if you can go into them, because you want to be flexible, you want to be able to have a plan if you can't Merciless them.
Yeah, and I noticed that a lot of things in the deck itself, restanding, they don't really use Counterblast. Like, you're avoiding the Counterblast cards. I know a lot of people run the Resist unit. I think he at some point uses a Counterblast, the grade 2, I forgot the name of it. Just various other things too. And I think this is actually a really smart strategy to kind of like avoid those, go with the softer costs, just to kind of play through your stride, which is really your win con.
The only thing you want to use Counterblast on is this guy, which is why I'm not running anything else that really does. The only possible card is this, but also Nova Grappler has the most countercharge of any clan in this entire game. So it's not usually too bad. The G-Guardians. Nova's kind of shafted on G-Guardians. Most of them don't gain a lot of shield, but we have a few good ones. So the most important one is Mito Kaiser Dogen Titan. When he guards, if you have less rear guards than your opponent, he gets 10k shield, and when he's in the G-Zone, you can Soul Blast 1, flip him back down so you can reuse him.
Oh my god, we got to see that sleeve. Hold on.
Oh yeah, I'll show you the sleeves in the G-Zone. Because I need to find a way to separate it from the main deck.
Oh my god, that's hilarious.
And his other skill is in the G-Zone, when he's face up, Soul Blast 1, flip him back face down, you can reuse him. and flip up a card on either your circle or your damage zone, so he can unlock, undelete, and countercharge for a Soul Blast.
Okay.
Media Kaiser Uniorb, he countercharges and soul charges if you don't have any of those. The main G Guard we really go into 2 Media Kaiser Gundreed. He is Generation Break 1, flip up a card in your G zone when he's or flip up a G Guardian when he's placed. For the rest of this turn, whenever your opponent attacks your Vanguard and does not hit, you countercharge. And the reason we need all that countercharge is this last G Guardian, Media Kaiser Stiff Need. He's another card that came out in the same set as Merciless did. His skill seems really underwhelming at first, but with the countercharge, it's a lot better. His skill is on place, counterblast 1 or more as much as you want, and then he gets 5k for every face down card in your damage zone. So if you have 5, he can gain 25k shield. And then if you counterblast a 2 for his cost, you draw 1. If you counterblast a 3 for his cost, you draw 2. So it's just getting more cards in hand.
Mm-hmm.
So that's cool. Basically I kind of want to go over the actual like combo of the deck, because if you don't really know exactly how this deck works, it kind of seems like a bunch of cards thrown together for no reason.
No, yeah, I can see your strategy, but absolutely, yeah. Let's go through a little test scenario or whatever you want to do.
Yeah. So the main board setup you want to have is just a Victor with a random grade 1, grade 2, and grade 0 in Soul. Again, it doesn't really matter what you ride into, as long as you have, your rides. So this is your Vanguard for the turn. You stride into this. You road, so you have, let's say, a single Excel marker. And this is the basic setup. So you call a Maliaki, and you call a Brutal Jack. And the last thing you need to get this going is a single Bare Knuckle Arnist in hand. The 3 cards you need are Brutal Jack, Maliaki, Arnist, and a Stride, and then you're set. If you have an extra Maliaki, the power gets very ridiculous, but you don't need it to go off.
Mm-hmm.
So what you do is you have this board set up. You have, I don't know, like 3 or 4 or 5 cards in hand, doesn't really matter, as long as it's more than 2. Brutal Jack's skill goes off, which is rest 2 rear guards, stand Brutal Jack. And you can rest himself for his own cost.
Yep.
He sees Brutal Jack's stand, which means you discard 2 cards from hand, and he attacks your opponents in the middle of the main phase. So you do your drive checks, hopefully you check a crit. A single crit will basically guarantee death. You check like a single crit, you're basically set for the whole turn.
Okay.
Then after he does his attack, you say call Arnist. Arnist's skill is on place, Soul Blast 1, rest himself, rest another rear guard, draw something. So you refill your hand a little bit, then you retire Arnist, pick a rear guard, stand it. That means he saw something stand, you counterblast 1, you attack with him again, you get Twig Drive this time, and you basically keep that going as long as you have...
And all the while, too, I don't know if we mentioned it here, that grade 1 is doling out power, like, throughout, right?
Yeah, actually, you might actually want to call him behind the Vanguard first. It's basically depending on whether you want more power on your last attacks or your earlier attacks. It might be better to call him behind the Vanguard first. But if you call him behind the Vanguard, when you swing with the Vanguard the first time, you pick 2 units, they get 4k. Probably pick himself and Jack, they're going to get 4,000 power. When the Vanguard swings again, you pick 2 units, give them 4k twice. So both of these guys will get 8k power. You pick the third time he does it, say you have another Arnist in hand, or you'll have cool Hank to stand something.
Yep.
Or you just keep drawing to Arnist, or you have Sazanda.
Yeah, I was going to say Sazanda will do that too, yep.
It'll just keep giving power, which makes everything ridiculously big.
Yep.
So the ideal situation would be to have 2 Maliaki, but you don't need that to go off. If you have a single Maliaki, you're probably hitting like somewhere in the realm of 60k on your last attacks.
Mm-hmm. Just still huge.
And that's basically it. That's the entire plan of this deck. One big benefit to this deck is you don't need them to be at very high damage to go off. If they're at 2 damage, you can swing for lethal from there. I've taken a guy from like 0 to 6 through like 3 damage triggers once. It was ridiculous. Because the power just scales ridiculous. And one big benefit of this guy is because you are drive checking in the main phase, you can call those cards out.
Yep.
So say you drive check, like a single critical trigger, which is why I run Red Lightning, and you're out of Counterblast, you're out of Soul, or whatever you need. Put Red Lightning on the board, shove them to Soul, countercharge one, and you got an extra Soul now. And
Yeah.
its main thing, you can do that.
That's big. That's really big, yeah.
Card you draw, every single card you drive check, you're going to be getting 6 drive checks this turn. All of that is fuel to keep this going. As long as you have cards in hand, as long as you have Counterblast, as long as you have restanders to go, whether it's Cool Hank or Arnest, you can keep going. And every attack you do, your Vanguard and Brutal Jack are getting at least 8k bigger. So if they get a damage trigger, it doesn't matter, because your Vanguard, the first time your Vanguard's 8k bigger, the second time your Vanguard's like 12k bigger. So it scales like crazy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That sounds just about right. So I think, this definitely sounds like probably the most competitive version of this deck right now, because I know I was toying around with it. I was playing a little bit like Beast Deities. I just kind of had a premium build going for them, and it's just too resource intensive. I feel like this is definitely a more solid, cohesive kind of strategy where all your resources are pretty much going through your Vanguard in terms of Counterblast. Everything else is just Soul Blast, restands kind of very naturally. So good job.
A few other variations deck, like I said, you can play this with Blouse. They can get a lot more attacks off, but not as much power. You can play this with Ashura Kaiser. You can get less attacks than Blouse, but less power than this version. And this version probably gets the most attacks and the most power, but it's also the most bricky, because you only have about like 4 grade 3s that you want to ride all game.
Yeah.
The hardest part about this deck, it's a Nova Grappler deck, it's a combo deck, you need to draw into your pieces. But if you can, stall them at low damage, because you can, like I said, you can 2 to 6 someone easily. If you can keep them at low damage until you have 1, 2, 3 of these in hand, then you're set.
Okay. Cool.
That's the only other things that I would like to mention are other cards that you could run in this deck that I'm not running at the moment. The first is the new V version of Extreme Battler Arashi. He's the new version of the guy who is your old Stride Fodder. The reason I don't run this guy is just because he can whiff, so you need to see your Victor in hand. And if you don't see Victor in hand, your game plan just dies, so I run old Arashi for that. The next and probably most important card you could be running in this deck is Extreme Battler Gunstar. He's the guy who gives resist to everybody. If you want to run him, I'm considering cutting out the one of Zubat Battler Victor for him.
Okay.
Because like a Denial Griffin or like an MP Dragon from Murakami, Bulwark, they could shut this down pretty quickly. So Gunsdom just denies that. And the only other cards you can think of are generic restanders like Kick Typhoon. The reason I don't run him is because he needs an Excel Circle. Sazanda needs an Excel Circle. They conflict with each other. And Kick costs a Counterblast. Extreme Battler Golshashi, who naturally has resist and can restand something else, but he also costs Counterblast. And the only other card in here worth considering is my boy Mito Kaiser Victoplasma.
There it is, yep.
Been carrying Nova Grappler since G-Set 1. A good friend of mine, David Tanakosov, one of the best Nova Grappler players in the world, still runs 4 Victoplasma in all of his decks. You can easily throw this in this deck. Like I said, most of the G-Zone is for show. The only reason I don't run him is, again, he costs Counterblast.
Got it.
And
okay. Cool. Awesome. Thanks for running us through that. I definitely are going to make a couple adjustments to my own deck personally. So, yeah, really looking forward to playing this. And thank you so much again. Any other final thoughts? Any closing statement you want to make?
Yeah, just Premium is a format where you have the most room for experimentation. A lot of V and Standard decks are kind of solved. We know what the best versions are. I don't think Premium's like that. Like Premium, you have the room to experiment. So try it out. Maybe this version of the deck will click with you. Maybe the Blau version, the Ashura version, the BCD version could click with someone. So experiment in Premium. Try out different things. You'll be surprised what kind of fun interactions you can find.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely echo that sentiment. So awesome. Thank you again, Mustafa, so much. I'll link any of the socials you want me to down below. Thank you again. This is Alex from Team Generations signing out.